10 reasons to hire a personal injury attorney. If you have been injured in an accident, you are going to have expenses to worry about. If the accident was the result of another person's negligence, then you are entitled to compensation from the at-fault party. But getting that compensation can be tricky. And you need to have someone working for you who knows the ins and outs of personal injury law. There are several reasons why you should hire a personal injury attorney. Some of them include 1. Objectivity. When you have been involved in an accident, your judgment is likely to be clouded. And you aren't going to be overly objective. An attorney has no personal stake in the case. So they are going to be objective and be able to make the best decisions on your behalf and ensure that you are compensated for your injuries. A personal injury attorney has experience with these types of cases. You won't have to worry about doing a lot of research, because a lot of it has been done in past cases. Your lawyer will know what to do every step of the way until your case is settled. As a layperson, you likely don't know about personal injury law, or how to get through all of the red tape that insurance companies like to put up. You don't have to worry about learning a lot of confusing legal and medical jargon. And your attorney can deal with all of the paperwork and other red tape. Getting a hold of the medical records, reviewing police files and medical charts, communicating with insurance companies, etc. takes a lot of time. Most people have to work, raise families, etc. And they don't have time to do all of these things, says one of Milwaukee's personal injury attorneys. But this is exactly what a personal injury attorney is there for. Most personal injury attorneys work with a team of investors. This team will examine every detail of the case, do reenactments, interview witnesses, etc. to make sure that you get the best settlement possible. The other party or parties involved in your case will have their own attorneys. Your lawyer has the experience to work with them directly. And in many cases, they know each other to begin with. This makes a lot of the process easier. Especially the fact-finding part where all parties involved exchange documents and facts. If you do end up in the courtroom, a personal injury lawyer will make sure that you are represented and that you receive a favorable jury verdict. They will ensure that you get the compensation that you are entitled to, which will cover medical costs, other legal costs, missed time from work, and future expenses related to your injury. If you do not win your case, you will not have to pay any legal fees. Most personal injury attorneys charge a contingency fee. This means that you are not responsible for attorney fees. But you may still be responsible for certain services provided by your attorney, such as doctor's fees for reviewing medical records. Not all personal injury cases end up in the courtroom. Your lawyer will offer suggestions for other types of resolutions that are easier, faster, and less expensive. Resolutions can include arbitration, mediation, or a trial. A lawyer can negotiate a settlement rather than have the case go to trial. This means that you give up your right to sue and receive payment instead. Your lawyer can ensure that you get the best settlement possible. Carol Morgan Drive. Carol Morgan is the owner of HerSideHisSide.com, a communication professor, dating and relationship coach, TV personality, speaker, and author. Read full profile. Go ahead and admit it. You have said things before that you wish you hadn't, and wanted to take back. Right. Sure. We all have. It's part of human nature. Sometimes we get so emotional about something that we forget to think before we speak. It's like something paralyzes our rational and logical brain. And in the process, our emotional brain lets words come out of our mouths that never should have. However, some people do it more regularly than others. And if you want to learn how to think before you speak, you have come to the right place. Some people may have been taught by their parents to think before words come out of their mouths. But many others have not. If you are in the latter category, then you will want to seriously think about these very important reasons why you should think before you say something you shouldn't. When I was growing up, my mother taught me and my sisters not to use swear words. I thought she just wanted us to be ladylike. But there was an even deeper reason. Sure, being ladylike is a nice thing. But beyond that, she was teaching us that the words you use determine your character. They affect not only yourself but also how people perceive you and what kind of person they think you are. I'm sure that you are aware of the politically correct language movement. Basically, it's changing words to nicer ones. For example, back in the 1970s, people used to use the word retarded to describe a person who was mentally slower than average. But since then, People have started using it as an insult. So, over the years, we have adopted different words and phrases like special needs. As I mentioned, words have power. And part of this power can be good or evil. What you say to a person can hurt them emotionally and mentally. And even though the saying goes, sticks and stones may break my bones but words will never hurt me, it is not true, words do hurt. But they can also help. So, it's important to make sure that the words you use help people instead of hurting them. I'm sure you've been angry at someone and said something that hurt them. And after you calmed down, you might have thought, gee, I didn't mean it like that. You see, when you are angry, it shuts down the logical part of your brain and then your emotions rule yourself. And then when the emotional part of your brain doesn't act as a filter for your words, you might say things you don't mean. You might be upset at someone because you thought they had intentions to hurt you. Then, as a result, you might lash out at them because of it. But not everyone has the intention of hurting you. Sometimes, people say things that are interpreted as the opposite of what they intended. So, make sure you talk with them to see what they actually mean before you assume anything. When we think someone said or did something hurtful to us, our emotions tend to go through the roof. Our automatic instinct is to explode. But that could very well be an overreaction. As I stated above, you should instead make sure that what they said warrants your emotional outburst because many times it doesn't. It's one thing to explode in anger to your sibling, best friend, or spouse. But it's another thing to do it to your boss or another superior. You need to assess whether you are about to say is appropriate for the kind of relationship you have with a certain person. By the same token, you also need to think about the situation. If it's a time, say, when you are at work or a company party, then it's best to keep your mouth shut and talk later. Too many people judge others before they've heard the whole story. It's easy to jump to conclusions, get angry, and say things that may or may not be true. If you automatically start criticizing and judging another person, they are going to get defensive. And when that happens, more negativity ensues. And the conversation and relationship can get ugly. Speaking of relationships, the more negative words that are spoken to another person over time, the more it damages them and also the relationship between the two of you. Think about it, would you want to stay with someone who is constantly calling you names and saying mean things? Of course not. Your words could absolutely destroy your relationship. Let's say you are angry at your 10-year-old daughter and you call her fat without thinking about it. Well, this is something that she may carry with her for the rest of her life. Especially if you say it often. She could easily become anorexic or develop some other problem. She may turn to self-loathing and start cutting herself. Words are long-lasting and affect other people's actions. Once you say something, it is out there forever. You can never take it back. Sure, you can try, but it won't work. Taking back what you say is like trying to put air back in a balloon, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter how much you try. It won't change the fact that those words are out there forever. Now that you know the reasons why you should think before you speak, how can you do that? It's easier for some people, while others find it nearly impossible. First, you should wait at least 5 or 10 seconds before you say anything. Especially when you feel upset or angry. If you can't keep your mouth shut, then an alternative is to just leave the room or situation. This way, you will prevent yourself from saying anything that you will regret. When you pause for those few seconds or leave the room, you need to think about whether you have a good point to make. Before you speak, consider the other person's feelings. How will it affect them? Believe it or not, it will. And if you do find that said something that you didn't want to, then you need to apologize and take personal responsibility for your actions and words. Finally, don't forget to learn from your mistakes. We've all said things that we regret. It happens. But the difference between people who do it all the time and the people who don't is that the ones who don't have learned not to do it and now know how to do it better. If you find it difficult to think before you speak, don't beat yourself up over it. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive for positive change. Empathy is key. Think about how your words affect others. You want to be a positive influence on other people, not a negative one. So, make sure you choose your words wisely, you won't regret it. Dr. Carol Morgan is the owner of hersidehiside.com, a communication professor, dating and relationship coach, TV personality, speaker, and author. Text source, lifehack.org.